There is a man 3 sites down with $2,000 of gear on a folding table, and he has been trying to light his fire for 20 minutes. You could end his evening in 4 minutes with a birthday candle and a paper cup. You will not walk over there, because the fix would look strange, and grown men will pay almost anything to avoid looking strange in front of strangers. So here are 20 tricks that look wrong. Not dangerous, just odd enough that you would rather not be seen doing them. Everyone beats something with a price tag on it. Number 20 is a bar of soap, and you are going to rub it on a clean pot. Here is the moment. You are about to hang your pot over the flames, and instead you smear the outside of it with a wet bar of soap or a squirt of dish soap on a paper towel. Thin, even, the whole outside, right up to the rim. Then you cook. Anyone watching thinks you have lost the plot, because you just washed it. What you actually did was put a layer between the metal and the smoke. Campfire soot lands on the soap instead of the pan, and in the morning it lifts off in one wipe with cold water and no scrubbing at all. 2 rules keep it clean. Soap on the outside only, never inside, unless you want your coffee to taste like the laundry. And do it before the pot is hot, not after. The gear answer to a black pot is a non-stick cook set and a bag of scouring pads. The old answer is the bar of soap already in your wash kit, and it costs 4 seconds. The name is Walt. I ran a scout troop up in Michigan's North Woods for 35 years, and something over 400 boys came through it in that stretch. Every one of those boys watched me do things that looked stupid. A grown man rubbing soap on a clean pan. A grown man burying a perfectly good tent stake sideways. And every one of them went home eventually and did the same stupid-looking thing in front of his own family, because it worked and the expensive version did not. I am not against new gear. I am against paying $40 for a problem a candle already solved. Number 19 is a birthday candle, and it saves a $200 tent. Tent zippers do not usually break. They stick, somebody yanks, and the yank is what kills them. The teeth go dry and gritty, the slider drags, and one hard pull in the dark bends the slider or tears the tape off the fabric. That tent goes to the dump, over a part worth about $1. The old fix is a stub of plain candle. Unlit, unscented. Rub the wax straight along the teeth, above and below the slider. Then run the zipper slowly back and forth a few times to work it through. Wax on the teeth only, not on the fabric, and brush the crumbs off with your hand when you are done. Do the whole length once at the start of the season and once midsummer, and the slider glides instead of dragging. Chapstick works in a pinch, and a pencil tip does too, since graphite is a dry lubricant. The store version is a zipper lubricant stick, $6.95. The candle is already in your kit because you brought it for light. Number 18 turns a supermarket matchbook into storm gear, and it happens at your kitchen table. You light a candle, let a little pool of wax gather, then roll each match head through it and lay it down to cool. That is the whole operation. The wax seals the head against damp air, rain, and the accident where the whole box goes in the lake. When you want it, you scrape the wax off the head with a thumbnail and strike it as normal. Do 100 at a sitting and keep them in a jar, and be honest that the coating is good for this season and next, not for a decade in a hot garage. I will give you the fair comparison. Stormproof matches, sold in a plastic case, run about $8.95 for a couple dozen. They light in wind that would kill a normal match, and they are genuinely good. But you own 400 kitchen matches and 1 candle, and for a wet weekend in the rain, the waxed ones do the job for pennies. Now, while we are on the small stuff, let me mention the one thing I get asked for constantly. Everything I teach on this channel, the tricks in their proper order with the actual measurements written next to them, the $50 kit, and the rules I will not bend on fire and water, is written down in one place now. It is called the Old Scout Way, Walt's Camping Manual, $29, and the link sits in the description below. It updates for free, so it does not go stale on your shelf. Number 17 is a piece of string tied where it seems to do nothing. Rain does not only fall on your tarp, it runs. It lands on your ridgeline out in the open, tracks along the rope like it is following a rail, and walks straight under the tarp and down onto your bed. You wake with a wet head under a shelter that never leaked once, so you tie a short bit of cord around the ridgeline just inside each tarp edge, where the rope passes under cover. Let the ends hang down 4 or 5 inches. The water running along the rope hits that knot, follows the dangling ends, because gravity is simpler than we give it credit for, and drips onto the ground instead of onto you. It looks like decoration, and somebody will ask why you tied a piece of junk to your own rope. Do the same on any hammock suspension, one each side, and do it before the rain starts rather than at 2 in the morning. There is no gear answer to this one, which tells you something. Nobody has worked out how to sell you a knot. Number 16 sleeps in the bag with you, and it is your flashlight. Cold does not damage an ordinary alkaline battery, but it does put it to sleep. Testing shows an alkaline cell can lose a large share of its capacity at freezing temperatures, with only about a third of its room temperature capacity still available down around 5 degrees. Warm it back up, and most of that comes back, which is the part almost nobody knows. So on a cold night, the headlamp, the spare batteries, and the phone go inside the sleeping bag with you, down by your knees. Not at the bottom by your feet where it is coldest, and not in the tent pocket. In the morning they work. Through the day, spare cells ride in a shirt pocket against your body, not in the top of the pack. The gear counter answer is lithium cells, which really do hold up in serious cold, and if you camp in winter regularly, they are worth the money. For a shoulder season weekend, your own body heat is free, and you are bringing it anyway. Number 15 is 2 extra seconds of lacing, and it is worth more than the boots. Heel blisters come from your heel lifting and sliding inside the boot, not from cheap boots, not from soft feet, from movement, over and over, mile after mile. Here is the lacing that stops it, and you can do it on the boots you already own. Lace normally up the foot until you reach the ankle. At that point, tie a surgeon's knot, which just means passing one lace over and around the other twice instead of once, then pulling it snug. That double wrap grips itself and holds the tension you just set, so it cannot creep loose. Now the heel lock. Take each lace straight up to the next hook without crossing. Then cross them and thread each lace under the opposite lace where it runs between the hooks, and pull down and out. Finish the boot as usual. What you get is a tight ankle with a foot that is not being strangled underneath, which is the combination that keeps your heel planted. Going downhill, it is the difference between arriving with feet and arriving with blisters. It looks fussy at the trailhead. It is free. It works on any boot with hooks, and it beats the blister kit you would otherwise be opening at lunch. Number 14 is a sin against the stuff sack, and it will save you $300. That little sack your sleeping bag came in is for carrying, not for keeping. Leave a bag crammed in it between trips and the insulation slowly stops springing back. Down can usually be revived. Synthetic fill often cannot. And once the loft is gone, the temperature rating on the tag is a work of fiction, so the bag lives out of the sack all year. Loose in a big breathable sack, or over a hanger in a closet, somewhere dry and not too warm. It takes up embarrassing space in a house where everything is meant to fold away, which is the whole reason people do not do it. Same idea. For the tent, dry, loose, never packed damp. A cold weather bag runs a few $100s, and most people replace theirs every few years believing it wore out. It did not wear out. It was flattened for 11 months a year in a bag the size of a loaf of bread. Quick word before the second half, since the rest of this list gets stranger and better. If an old scoutmaster doing the math on your gear aisle is worth something to you, the subscribe button is how this keeps showing up. It costs nothing, and the one waiting at number 2 is the reason I made the whole video. Number 13 is digging, and the modern camper will think you are building something. Before foam and air, a boy who slept on the ground scooped 2 shallow dishes into it. One where your hip lands, one for the shoulder, both on the same side you sleep on, each about a hand deep and no wider than the bone that goes in it. Then you lie down, and the ground stops fighting the 2 hardest parts of you. It works. Because the ground is not too hard, it is too flat, and your body is not. Now the honest part, because this one fell out of fashion for a good reason. It is not for a numbered campground site or a well-used spot where the rule is to leave the ground the way you found it. It is for rough dispersed camping, your own land, or a night that went wrong, and when you get up you push the dirt back in and scatter the leaves over it so nobody can tell. The gear answer is an insulated air pad at $200, and I will say plainly that a good pad is warmer than a hole. But it is not more comfortable than a hip hollow, and I have watched men on $200 pads roll over all night while boys on flat foam slept straight through. Number 12 is a sock full of warm sand, and it saves your boots from you. Wet boots by the fire is the oldest mistake at camp. Direct heat shrinks leather, makes it brittle, and cooks the adhesive holding your sole on. Boots do not usually die on the trail. They die at the fire ring, being helped. Here is the old way. Scoop dry sand or small gravel into a metal pot. Warm it beside the fire until it is hot to the hand but not scorching. Then pour it into a spare wool sock, tie it off, and drop it into the boot. Squeeze it down to the toe. Swap it for a fresh warm sock when it cools, and the sand pulls moisture out from the inside, where boots actually stay wet. No sand? Dry grass, moss, or crumpled paper packed in tight does the same job more slowly. Pull the insoles either way and stand them up separately. If you must use the fire, hold your hand where the boots will sit. If your hand is uncomfortable, so are they. A home boot dryer runs about $45 and needs an outlet. Sand is free, and there is no outlet in the woods. Number 11 buries the stake instead of driving it, and it holds better than anything you can buy. Sand and snow do not grip a stake. Push a stake into either one, and the first real gust pulls it out like a cork. So the old campers stopped fighting the ground and started using it. You dig a trench across the pull of the guy line, tie the line around the middle of a stick, a rock, a bundle of brush, or the stake itself. Lay that object flat in the bottom of the trench crosswise to the pull and bury it. In firm damp sand, 8 inches down is usually enough. In dry loose sand, go 12 to 18. In snow, a stick a foot or 2 long buried sideways will hold a tent through weather that would strip a normal stake out in seconds. It works because you are no longer relying on friction against a thin metal pin. You are asking the whole weight of the ground above the object to hold it down, and the deeper it sits, the stronger that gets. It takes 10 minutes and looks like you are burying evidence. Purpose-built sand stakes run up to $35 a piece, and the stick was lying right there. Number 10 is counting, and you will do it under your breath like a man saying his prayers. Measure out 100 meters on level ground and count how many paces it takes you to walk it, counting only every time your left foot lands. Most people come in somewhere between 60 and 75. That number is yours. It belongs to your legs, and it changes uphill, downhill, and in deep brush, so learn those too. Now you can measure the world. 9 knots tied a few inches apart on a short cord ride on your pack strap. Slide 1 knot down each time you finish 100, and when the ninth goes, you have covered about a kilometer, so start over and mark it. Why bother with a phone in your pocket? Because distance is the thing people misjudge worst when they are tired or turned around. And a man who knows he has gone 600 paces since the creek can find that creek again. It also works with the battery dead. You will look like you are muttering to yourself. A satellite watch does this for you, costs real money, and quits when it is cold and empty. Number 9 builds furniture out of the woods, and this is the one that gets stared at hardest. 3 poles of deadfall and about 15 feet of cord makes a tripod. You lay the poles side by side, wrap the cord around all 3 near one end 7 or 8 turns. Take 2 or 3 turns between the poles to tighten the wrap, then tie it off and stand it up. That is a pot hanger over the fire, a washstand with a basin in the middle, or a rack that gets your gear off wet ground. 4 poles lashed in a square with cross pieces makes a table you carry nothing home from. The knots are simple. The cord comes back with you, and the wood goes back on the forest floor. Deadfall only, never a living tree, and check whether you are allowed to gather wood where you are, because plenty of parks say no and mean it. A folding camp table runs from about $15 for the small one you will hate to $120 for the one you will like. The tripod costs the 15 feet of cord you already carry, and it takes about 4 minutes once you have done it twice. Number 8 is the famous one, and I am going to take it apart in front of you. Everyone has heard it. Sharpen a green stick, hold the tip in the coals until it darkens, and you have hardened it. Every survival show has done it, and it feels like ancient knowledge. Researchers actually tested it and published the results, and this is where the story turns. Charring the wood does make the surface slightly harder, exactly as promised. It also cut the wood's strength by about 30% and its resistance to fracture by about 36%. So you get a point that dents less and snaps far more easily, which is a poor trade for anything you intend to lean on. But the trick is not worthless, and here is what it is actually for. Char the tip, scrape the black off with a stone or a blade, char it again, scrape again. Each pass takes wood away fast, and the same testing found the shaping work drops from around 2 hours to about 45 minutes. So it was never much of a hardening trick, whatever it did to the surface. It was a shaping trick, misremembered for a couple of generations. Use it to shape a tent peg or a pot stake without wearing out your knife, and do not trust a fire-blackened point with any real weight. Number 7 is a piece of pipe, and it turns you into a bellows. Kneeling down and blowing on a struggling fire half works. Your breath spreads out over everything. You fan ash into your own eyes, and the smoke goes straight up your face while you lie in the dirt. A tube fixes all of it. Any hollow metal tube 2 or 3 feet long, an old aerial, a length of copper pipe, even a stiff hollow reed. You blow in the wide end, and a thin, fast jet of air comes out the far end, and you aim that jet at the base of the coals from a comfortable sitting position with your face out of the smoke. The reason it beats fanning is placement. Fanning throws a lot of air at everything, including the flame itself, which can just blow it out. The tube feeds oxygen up through the hot coals, precisely where the burning happens, and a dull orange bed goes to full flame in seconds. Keep it short of the coals, and never use a tube that has had fuel or chemicals through it. The shop-bought pocket bellows is a collapsing metal tube for about $15, and it is a decent little thing. It is also a piece of pipe. Number 6 is cooking tree sap in a tin can, and you will smell like a Christmas tree for a day. Hardened resin, the amber-colored beads that ooze from a wound in a pine, is the oldest glue in North America. On its own, it dries too brittle to hold anything. Mixed properly, it is a repair kit that grows on trees. Collect the hard resin, not the runny, fresh sap. Melt it in a can over low indirect heat, never over a flame directly, because the fumes catch fire easily, and you only make that mistake once. Strain out the bark and the ants through a bit of cloth. Then stir in crushed charcoal from your own fire, roughly 1 part charcoal to 3 parts resin, which is what stops it from shattering. A pinch of dry ground fiber or fine dry grass makes it tougher still. Pour it onto a stick to cool. To use it, warm the end and press it where you need it. It patches a canoe seam, glues a knife handle back to its tang, and sticks a torn boot together well enough to walk out. It hardens instantly on contact, so heat the surface first and work fast. Modern repair adhesive comes in a tube for a few dollars and is better in every way except the one that matters at 4 miles from the truck, which is that the tube is at home. Yen. Number 5 is a bag over a branch, and this one waters you while you sleep. A leafy tree pushes water out through its leaves all day long. Tie a clear plastic bag over a leafy branch of a non-toxic tree. Gather as many leaves inside as you can. Seal the mouth around the limb and weight the lowest corner with a small stone so there is a low point for the water to run to. Give it a full day in the sun. What collects is clean water that has come up through the tree. It tastes faintly like the tree, which is about the only clue where it came from. Now the fences, and I want them clear. This is not a water supply, it is a trickle. 1 bag on a good sunny day gives you a few mouthfuls to a couple of cups, and you would need several bags working at once to matter. Only trees you can positively identify as non-toxic drink it within a day, and move the bag to a fresh branch after 2 so you do not kill the limb. It is a thing to set up in the morning and forget, not a thing to rely on. A personal filter straw is about $20 and does not care what kind of tree it is next to, and you should own one. Number 4 floats, and it was in your grandmother's sewing tin. Take a steel sewing needle and stroke it in one direction only, 30 or 40 times, along a magnet. A fridge magnet works. The magnet in an old speaker works better. Lift it clear at the end of each stroke, and always go the same way, because stroking back and forth just undoes the work. Now lay the needle on something that floats. A leaf, a scrap of bark, a bit of cork, anything on still water in a cup, out of the wind. In a few seconds it swings and it settles pointing north and south. 2 honest limits. First, it gives you the line, not the direction. It cannot tell you which end is north, so you resolve that with the sun, which rises in the east. Second, you will read that you can magnetize a needle on silk or your own hair, and while that does something, the effect is weak and easily beaten by the water's own surface tension. Use a real magnet if you have one. A proper base plate compass is cheap and better in every way, but this one told sailors where north was for centuries out of a needle and a puddle. Number 3 is fire out of a battery, and it comes with a warning I want you to hear even if you never light a thing. Take a piece of fine steel wool and touch it across both posts of a 9-volt battery. The wool glows orange instantly, runs like a fuse, and drops into your tinder. No matches, no sparks, nothing to aim. It works soaking wet on your hands in the rain, which almost nothing else does. Both of those things fit in a shirt pocket, and if you carry a smoke alarm battery and a scrap of wool, you carry fire. Here is the warning, and this is the reason this item sits so high. That exact reaction happens by accident in houses every year. The posts on a 9-volt sit side by side, so anything metal bridging them shorts it out and makes real heat. Fire departments warn specifically about loose 9-volts in a junk drawer next to steel wool, foil, paper clips, or keys, and steel wool is the fastest of the lot. In fire service testing, a paper clip lying across a 9-volt browned the tissue beside it in about 10 minutes, so they never ride loose together. Keep batteries in their packaging, or put a strip of electrical tape over the posts and pack the wool in a separate bag. Do that at home tonight regardless of whether you ever camp again. Number 2 boils water in paper, and no, I am not being clever with words. Fill a paper cup with water and set it directly over a small flame. The paper does not burn, the water boils. You can drink out of the same cup afterward and see the scorch marks stop exactly where the water line was. Here is why, and it is worth understanding rather than memorizing. Paper needs somewhere around 450 degrees Fahrenheit to catch. Water boils at 212 and then refuses to go higher because every bit of extra heat goes into turning it to steam instead of raising the temperature. The water sits against the paper and holds it far below the temperature it needs to ignite. The water is not a passenger. It is doing the cooling. The old campers used the same physics with birch bark folded into a box and pinned with a sliver of wood, and a container of bark will boil a quart of water over coals as long as the water stays in it. That is the whole rule for this one, and it is not negotiable. The moment the water is gone, the paper or bark goes up in seconds. Keep the flame low and under the water line, never up the dry sides, and never walk away from it. A stove and pot system runs well over $100. It is faster, and I use one. But the day the stove is empty, a coffee cup and a small fire will still make you something hot to drink, and that is a thing worth knowing. Number 1 is the bed, and it is the strangest thing anybody ever taught me. You sleep on the ground where the fire was, not near it, on it. Trappers and drovers did this for as long as there have been trappers, and here is the shape of it. Early in the evening you clear the spot you intend to sleep in, down to bare mineral soil, dirt and grit, not leaf litter, not roots, not the spongy stuff. You build your cooking fire right there and let it burn a good 2 hours while you eat and do everything else. The heat soaks down into the ground the whole time, and ground gives heat back slowly for hours, which is exactly the opposite of the way it steals it from you on a normal night. Then, and this is the part that matters, you rake the coals out and kill them. Drown them, stir them, drown them again, and hold the back of your hand near the ashes until it is cool enough to touch. Then you cover the heated ground with several inches of dry dirt, put your ground cloth and your bedding on top of that, and go to sleep on a spot that stays warm most of the night. You will read the older version, where the coals are buried under a few inches of soil and left live under the bed. I am not teaching you that one, and I want to be straight about why. Buried coals hold heat for days. They are invisible, and the people they burn are usually somebody else's children walking across a campsite the next morning. In dry duff or peat they can also creep underground and come up somewhere you are not. That is why the agencies that manage fire say a campfire gets drowned rather than buried, and nostalgia does not outrank a ranger on a dry August. Do it on bare mineral soil, never on peat, duff, or over roots, never under a tent floor, and not at all when there is a fire restriction, which in a lot of the West is most of the summer now. And even then, put loft between you and the ground, because you still want insulation, you just want it over a warm floor instead of a cold one. Do that once on a clear, cold night, and you will understand why a man would sleep on a dead fire on purpose. The gear version of that warm floor is a $200 insulated pad, and there is nothing wrong with owning one. There is something wrong with never having known there was another way. So that is the 20. Look at what they replace. The zipper stick, the storm matches, the boot dryer, the pocket bellows, the sand stakes, the filter straw, the camp table, the insulated pad. Those are just the 8 I can put a real current price on, and together they come to $450.82. Tonight's answers came out of a candle, a bar of soap, a spare sock, a piece of string, some deadfall, and a fire you were building anyway. I am not telling you to throw the gear out. Half of it is genuinely good and I own a fair bit of it. I am telling you that not one of these tricks was lost because something better arrived. They were lost because nobody could sell them to you, and because doing them where people can see feels ridiculous. Try one this weekend. Rub the soap on the pot before you hang it, since that one takes 4 seconds, and you will see the difference at breakfast. Wax the tent zipper before you pack. Tie the string on the ridgeline if there is rain in the forecast. Then leave a comment below telling me which of tonight's 20 you would still be too embarrassed to do with the neighbors watching, and be honest about it, because I would bet on the digging one. And if there was an old man who first showed you something that looked stupid and turned out to be right, tell me who he was, because those are my favorite comments on this whole channel. That fellow 3 sites down got his fire going eventually, about an hour later, with a lighter and most of a newspaper. I have watched 400 boys learn to do a thing that looked stupid while the rest of the campground watched them do it. Not one of them ever came back and told me they had gone out and bought the $40 version.